If anything I say sounds like it's too wild to be true, ask them. They know. I want to talk to you about God's mercy in my life. And it's not even my life. It's His. It's always been. And I took a lot of things for granted. I took a lot of grace He gave me for granted. I should not be here. How many of y'all believe in miracles? Because you're looking at one. There's a few more out there, I'm sure. I should be dead multiple times over. But God has shown me mercy. It's hard to believe that I am here now. And I even beg God that I wouldn't have to do this. But I believe this is what He wants me to do. If it's nothing else but to tell people one-on-one about how He saved me from myself and how He saves me from myself every day, because there is nothing good in me except God. If you don't mind, we're going to pray real quick. Lord, I love You and I thank You for this day. You've allowed me to rise up. Lord, give me words. This is Your story. Lord, let me tell it accurately and coherently. Lord, just speak through me, Lord. And people would come to know You. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So, for those of you who don't know entirely, my full name is David Wesley Helms. And most people who know me from Ground 40 know me as David. When I got there, I knew Wesley because I was there. So instead of getting things confused, I told them my name was David. They said my first name, and I was like, we'll go with that. So if you hear anybody call me David, that's why. Most of you know me as Wesley, but that's okay. So I was born in Charlotte Presbyterian Hospital. I am a twin, for those of you who don't know. Even from birth, I think the devil was trying to get me then. Probably hating this moment right here. I come out blue. My sister came out fine. 15 minutes later, I had an emergency C-section to get me out. I was dying. But I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I know my parents split when I was young, broken home, things happen. I really don't remember a lot of my childhood. I remember coming to live with my father at age 7, and I was on a lot of medicines for, I say a lot, I was on a medicine for ADHD. I would black out. I was a violent child. I got in a lot of fights. I about went to military school. I got threatened with that several times. But God intervened, and He prepared this man to have me raised in the right way, that I would learn about God from a young age. Being raised up in the right way, even though I got older, I didn't depart from it. I always knew about God. I always knew that He loved me. But I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I just couldn't help myself. I would try to be faithful to God, and I couldn't. I would come to church. I'd be that hour a week Christian. How you doing? And then as soon as I got home, I'd be doing exactly what I wanted to do. But I moved to my dad's house at 7, be with all my siblings. Lauren came a year later. And God spared me from a lot of things, even in that. And like I said, Daddy got saved, and God started working in his life, and in turn in mine. And a lot of my childhood I don't remember. It's a blur. But another testament to God's mercy, I can remember with accuracy things that men have preached. I don't even remember the men who preached, but I can remember the things that they preached from the time I was a child, that I was in church. And God has used that for me to administer and to witness to people while I've been at Ground 40 and outside, working with Underground Marketplace and speaking to people about God. So everything was kind of blurry, and I remember here and there and yonder and different things, but memory starts to get clearer as I got my license and working, and I was obsessed with money. I was greedy. I made money my God, and that's all I pursued. And God, having mercy. By 18, I was going to college, and I don't know if any of y'all remember this. I'm sure some of you do. In 2008, the housing market collapsed. I could not get federal loan money to pay for college. My school would not take it. The state said I made too much money to get the Pell Grant. So I started selling drugs to pay for college. And you can let your mind go where that goes. I'm not going to go into specifics about what and where and how. But I did for years. And I had running around in the middle of the night and then having to drive an hour to school and do 6 hours, 8 hours in lecture, and then coming back, going to work. And I lived with my brother at the time. We lived together off Canyon Street in Lysville. We had some crazy times out there. And the Bible even says there's fun in sin for a season. Well, we had fun. But it came to an end. God reined me in again and humbled me. And one particular instance, I was telling Daddy about this on the way here. A man that I know, who is my friend, who was in the midst of some of those things that I was doing. One night I go to collect money, and he pulls a gun on me. And I was too foolish, too stupid to even be scared. He said, "What you gonna do now?" I said, "I guess I'm gonna get shot, or you're gonna pay me." He paid me, and I left. That's one of the many times God spared my life, because I was a fool. I was a fool. As things went on, it seemed like they got harder. I stopped going to college. Trying to live 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and that doesn't work. I met the mother of my first child, and that was a wake-up call. I didn't even realize, or I couldn't even recognize myself. I had done things that I said I would never do. I went places I never thought I'd never go. I've hurt people. I've lied. I've stolen. Wicked man. As those things went on, Adlam was conceived, and I remember Daniel and I went to church. I was looking to find Chuck McKnight as a pastor when I was a young kid, and I've always loved Chuck. He's a good man. And I was sitting there in church, waiting for the service to start. Daniel was sitting right beside of me, and I was seeking Chuck out because I wanted to submit to God. I wanted to do right, and I was looking for a man to help facilitate that. But I was looking for the man to save me. And it's the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life, and I spoke to him about this, and some people look at you like you're crazy, but I heard God tell me in an audible voice, He can't save you, only I can. And too foolish to understand what that meant at the time. I didn't. I knew it happened. I talked to him about it. I even asked him, did he hear it when he was sitting beside of me? It was an experience I'll never forget. So I got sober. I was sober for 3 years, and I was working all the time. I'd never been more depressed in my life. Sobriety is great. We want you to be sober. That's awesome. But you'll just find another thing to fall into. There'll be another sin that comes up and grabs you. I was miserable, and I tried. And God's mercy again, every day of those 3 years, I would talk to my father, and he would preach to me for about an hour as he drove to Charlotte to work. I think that's the only reason why the sobriety lasted as long as it did, because I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I was trying to do right, but I just could not help myself. I was dead in the sin. Just lost, dying, miserable. So, people who do drugs, they, at least in my experience, you take it to relieve whatever responsibility it is that you have at that moment. Like young kids drinking, there's so much weight of responsibility on you that you take a drink, you take a drug, whatever it is, and to not feel that burden. But there they are when you wake up. But eventually, it becomes the only way you can feel anything. And then beyond that, and I experienced this, even that doesn't work. And then you feel nothing. So you're spending all your money and all your time doing this thing, and yet you're empty. You try to keep filling this hole with all these things from the world, and even in temporary happiness, that will flee too. The world is shining, and they have all these things to take your attention away from God, but eventually it loses its luster. There is no shine left, and then you're left broken, depressed, miserable. So as my sobriety ended, I turned to drugs again. And it seems like every time you try to do right and then you fall back, it catches another gear. It goes up another notch. God will have mercy on you and let you hold the line where you think it is, but the line always gets moved, because He will turn you over to that depraved heart. The heart is wickedly deceitful above all things. And I didn't know that my line would be moved so far. But even the fact that He allowed it not to move any further than He did is another testament to God's mercy and grace in my life. There's things that He just didn't, He kept me from doing, and not only kept me from doing, but the people around me, they would ask me, let's do this, let's do that. And I'd be like, man, I don't know, that just, it would sound good all the way up until it was time to do it. And I was just like, man, I can't. I'd be the first one to back out. I couldn't bring myself to do some of those things. And that was God. That was God, because there was no limit that I wouldn't go to when I was as high as I could have been or got to, that everything sounded like a good idea. I mean, foolish, just foolish. So let's see. Adam was born, years of sobriety, went back to using drugs and chasing money. I stayed working so much that I wasn't even around to be a father to my children. I would work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Easy. I mean, I'd work myself till I could not, and I'd get sick and have to take a day, 2 days, sometimes go to the hospital, and then try to do it again. And I was just chasing money and still always miserable. Well, God knew what it was going to take to break me. I was miserable in the job that I was in, even though I liked the people I worked with, and I hated to leave, but I was still steadily trying to get more. And it was never enough. I couldn't do enough. I always felt like I was a failure. I always felt like I was letting people down, even though the people around me love me, and they would tell me, I'm proud of you. You're doing good. But I was always empty. Nothing would fill me, and no matter how much it was. So I stopped working at Bakery Feeds the next day. It's just strange how all that happened. I worked a 3-week notice. I worked it for about 7 years. But I worked a 3-week notice. I started working at Allback, and was making money. What I thought was good money. Then that money increased. Within 6 months, I went from making $18 an hour to almost 25, like quickly, advanced. I mean, that's the only thing I put myself into was my work. And nothing else mattered, and I thought that's what a father did, was provide, but you actually have to be there and love your children to be a father. And I missed that, and he tried to tell me, and I wouldn't listen. I thought having the stuff was more important than actually being there, which I knew they were with somebody that loved them and they cared for them, and I would try to help them as much as I could, but I was more concerned about making money. And eventually I was sober doing that for a short time, and there's a whole lot more, but we'll leave that out. That's fine. But as I made more and more money and acquired more and more stuff, it was evident that nothing could fill me. And I was turned back to drugs again, and it caught another gear. It went up. It got worse. I would run multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, and as high as a Georgia pine. It was God's mercy that nobody got hurt, that nobody died. I've seen people burned. I've seen all kinds of things happen there, and God's good. He even in my foolishness, He protected the people around me because He knew how much of a fool I was. And I thought I was just that good. Foolish. Absolutely foolish. But as I climbed this mountain of pride that God was allowing me to climb, He knew just how high I needed to get before He kicked me off. And He broke me. He broke me. It took a little while. It took a little while for the money to run out. Actually, it took some years. Things that I had that I would sell that I thought that I had worked for, that I had earned. But I didn't. God allowed me to have these things. God blessed me with these things. Even the house that I grew up in, I lost that. And I just continuously was burning through all these things that I had acquired to sustain keeping that house. And eventually it got to what I consider the worst part. I was sitting in that house with no power because I spent all my money on drugs. No water because I spent all my money on drugs. Didn't even have a candle to light. And I couldn't even get light to read a Bible. And I cried out to God. I said, God, where are you? I had to strike a lighter to read this. It says, fear not, for I am with you. I said, God, where are you? You said you'd never leave me. You'd never forsake me. I feel forsaken. I'm alone. Why have you done this to me? But I did that to me. God spared me and kept me alive when I should have died. I should have OD'd. By the way, for those of you who don't know, if you've ever nodded out, if you've ever passed out, if you've ever taken enough of whatever it was that you took, and you have doubled over or just, head back, whatever, you have begun to OD. Your heart has slowed down by God's grace and mercy. You just didn't die. And I didn't know that until I got to ground 40. Somebody was telling me that, and I was like, wow, I've probably OD'd over 1,000 times because that's how foolish I was. I was just headlong into the sin, running as hard as I could get it. and trying to run away from God. I had a thought one time, God, what's my purpose? And then I got to thinking, maybe I don't want to know what my purpose is, because once I fulfill that, He's going to take me out of here. And so I literally turned and ran from God. So I'm sitting on a couch in the dark. I had to strike a lighter to read this. And it wasn't 24, 48 hours from that lowest moment. And I cried out to God that God started to bless me. Some family that I didn't even know had the means bought the house before the bank could take it, the day before the bank could take it. And I was thinking, Lord, you like to get it down to the wire, don't you? He had me sweating. I mean, really, I knew where I could have got the money, but I was going to have to hurt somebody to do that. And I couldn't bring myself to do that because God was merciful on me, because that would have started a whole other chain of events. The Bible says, how can a man come to Him unless he has first hated his life? Well, even after that blessing, I still hated my life. I was so depressed, trying to get sober, which that was a feeble attempt. I mean, I was just masking whatever symptoms were of trying to come off of what it was. I wasn't stopped getting high. There was no high. I was trying to maintain, and I wasn't doing a very good job of that either. So I was tired of letting people down, and I was just tired of being. I didn't want to be anymore. And I walked outside, I had a loaded 38 in my hand. I was going to take my life. And I don't know. Again, God's mercy, because I had it cocked. I had it beside my head. And I just didn't. It wasn't that I felt like I couldn't. It's just something in me changed. And I don't even know. It's not like I received salvation in that moment. God just took my attention elsewhere. And it wasn't maybe 4 or 5 days from that day that Daddy let me come stay with him for a couple of days before I went to Ground 40. And man, when I got there, I was sitting there thinking, what in the world has Daddy got me into? I said, man, I don't know about this. I had other plans. I was going to acquire a vehicle, and I was going to go and do something else. I didn't know what it was I was going to do. I had a pretty good idea, and none of it was good. But I get there, and first day I'm thinking, what in the heck is this? I just didn't know what to make of it. I've never been to any facility or program or any of that. And on my second day, I was still thinking, man, I might need to call somebody to come get me. By the third day, I was like, you know what, I could get used to this. I could. By the fifth day, I said, I'm not leaving. I had more fun, and I wasn't even saved at the time. I had more fun there in 6 hours than I did in 6 months in the world. And I couldn't understand how I was able to have joy, but it was God. It was God. And being around people that had struggled with the same things that I have, it wasn't like I was the black sheep or the outcast, or I was the dirty sinner, or I was the lost man, because there were other men there who were lost. But there was a camaraderie there I'd never seen. There was 40 plus people there. Now not so many, but my 11th day there, I was working out with some of the guys, and Wesley, and he turned to me and he said, when you gonna give your life to the Lord? I said, or why haven't you given your life to the Lord? And I said, no, I've never felt led. And he smiled at me and said, that's a good answer. And I knew all the answers to the questions in a superficial way, but there's bearing fruit, and then there's being barren. And I wasn't bearing any fruit. I mean, I was around these people who had the light of God in them, but I was still, and I spoke with many men there while in the course of those leading up to those 11 days, trying to figure out what it was that I had between me and God. I couldn't figure it out. I said, God, you've taken everything from me. You've taken the cars, you've taken the drugs, you've taken the house, you've taken the women, you've taken all the idols out of my life. What is it that I haven't given you? I don't understand why you're not drawing me in, because if I have anything to do with my salvation, I'm in trouble. God's the one who gave me the grace. God's the one who drew me in. John 6:44. How can a man come to the Father or come to the Son unless the Father draws him? Like I was still lost, and I knew it. So Wes asked me that question, and I told him I hadn't felt led. And then he turned to me, and I will never forget this to the day that I die. He said, Deuteronomy 4:29, he who seeks me with the fullness of his heart. I had never even considered looking for him. I thought he was going to come to me. But he's the one that gave me the ability and the want and the desire to look for him. Because I had tried to seek him out in different men and different things, but you put your trust in the Lord, have no confidence in men. God's the one who saved me. I was working, just doing some things, and God revealed it to me that no matter what it is that I'm doing, no matter if it's a terrible job or the best job in the world, no matter if it's speaking to one man or 50, no matter what it is, that I should do it as if he's going to come down and hear me speak about him or do the work for him. And that's giving him the fullness of my heart, no matter how menial the job is and no matter how mean your boss is, that I should do it to glorify God, because it's not about man, it's about him. Everything's about him. So that Sunday, it was June 5th, and it was about 9:49 at Lee Park. I was standing there, and the songs that they were singing through the service are the ones that I have been singing that week, and they were, older Baptist songs, hymns, and I just thought that was rare. I thought that was odd, and I was crying like a baby. I was broken. I was all the way broken, and God let me realize that there was no pride left in me. He humbled me, and thank God for it. And I was standing there, and they had an altar call, and I had to pray to God. I said, you have got to help me. I cannot even move my feet, and I couldn't. I was stuck. There was not one step I could have took, and He allowed me to move and to begin walking, and it's almost like I floated down there. I mean, that's like He was lifting me down there. And I prayed, and I told Him, I'm all in. This is yours. This is all yours. It was yours to begin with, and it always has been. And I was a fool to think it was ever my life. It's your life. Why I took so long and was so foolish. God allowed me to revel in that sin until I hated it, and I hated myself, and I hated everything about my life. And then He gave me the grace and the mercy to allow me to turn to Him, and that He would save me from that. And He did. 2 days later, I got baptized. And my experience at Ground 40, I had seen one or two good examples of discipleship in my life that I could remember. Like I said, a lot of my childhood is a blur, but I do remember certain Christian men in my life taking time with me, and my father taking time with me and talking to me about God. And not only that, but I didn't fully understand what to do as far as discipleship goes. So I go to some of the staff there, and I was talking to them, and I was like, man, I I heard one of the guys at Ground 40 say, once you get saved, it's like a game of tag, because the next one is, you've been discipled, now you are saved. Tag, you're it. Now it's time for you to make a disciple. This is how this thing works. It's cyclical. It just keeps feeding into itself. If we're not discipling other people and telling people about God, how are we ever going to reach the world? How are they ever going to hear about God? So, excuse me. Very wise man named Matthew Scango. I'm talking to him, and he told me a very simple, very true, but very profound answer. Start where you are. I was like, okay, I don't know where I am. Wherever it is you can find something that needs to be done, start there. So I did, and I took a lot of what they said to heart. I prayed to God, what do you want me to do? Show me what you want me to do. And before I could even open my eyes, here comes somebody who needed to be discipled, who needed godly counsel, and God gave me the words that would help them. And I was like, okay, well, I see how this is going to work. I hadn't even finished praying yet, and here it comes. Talking about trusting and relying on God. He has answered. I've prayed things for 20 years that have never come. But the more selfless the prayer, and the more earnest and honest and heartfelt it is about what God wants me to do, I've watched prayer be answered before I could open my eyes. So I begin talking to people, and the whole time I still am having this feeling that I'm letting God down. And I talked to Daddy about it. I talked to Anthony Ragone about it. I said, I feel like I'm failing God. Like I'm not doing, there's something I'm not doing that I'm supposed to be doing. And it was eating me up. I don't know if it was just him using that to drive me in a certain direction or to lead me in this way. But I've been talking to people and discipling different men and talking to them about God. And he's, all the things that I heard as a child, he's by His grace and mercy, it's the fact that I can remember my own name after some of the things that I've done and some of the places I've been and things I've been through is a testament to God's mercy in my life. But now, as I stand before you, I can remember things with accuracy that I heard when I was a child that I guess God just wanted me to remember, and I can't remember most of my childhood. And I don't even know how to explain that other than God willed it to be so. So I'm talking to people about these things, and it's like my mind's been unlocked to all the things that I've heard, and it's a strange thing. But I go to the staff and I tell them I just want to help. I don't know how I can help, but I want to help. And they put me on intake. So people call, and I'm going to give you pretty much what we tell them as the phone call would go on. We can answer a lot of questions fairly quickly. So I would answer the phone. This is Ground 40. This is David. Can I help you? And it's always a parent or a sister or an aunt or a cousin or a father or a brother, and they're concerned about a family member, trying to reach out to get help for that family member. It's sad, because I've been that man. Whatever drug it was, I've been that man. I've done that. I've hurt my family and stolen peace and sleep and all around just hurt people that love me, that really love me. So when I went through these things, they trained me on a phone call, and I always share this one because it's probably the worst one I've heard. It's the first one I ever got to hear. This lady called, and she's crying, and she's upset. She is leaving her home to call us to get help for her son who just OD'd and had just gotten out of the hospital. And she was worried and in a hurry to get back home so that she could get to him before he had the time to OD again. It's the first call I ever listened to. And I was like, wow, God, what have you why are you putting me into this? Like, you talking about being baptized by fire. Like, it hurt my heart just to hear that lady crying. So, anyway, that's just a little bit of a story there. You would call and I'd answer the phone and I'd tell them, I can answer a lot of questions fairly quickly. So what we normally say is, we're not AA, we're not NA, we're not a 12-step or a self-help, we're not a mental health, and we're not a healthcare facility. We are a faith-based ministry, solely a discipleship ministry, and we bring people in who struggle with homelessness, addiction, coming out of incarceration, depression, any manner of problems that men experience. And we tell them about the good news of Christ and how the only way that you're ever going to get lasting change is through Christ. That He cleans you from the inside out. That you can be sober and you can be miserable. We want people to be sober. Absolutely. The Bible says be sober-minded. But that's not going to save you from the sin. Only He can. There's no way physically possible that you can do this on your own. You can get sober on your own. And I've done it. And it was some of the most miserable times of my life. That if sobriety is the point, then you should go, we have a list of places that they can go. But we're here to tell people about God. God is the thing that does the change. So, nevertheless, it's been an experience, to say the least, and I've spent a good amount of time doing intake, and I work at an underground marketplace. I've been working there since right around the time I was saved. And there's always blessings there. They send us out to help people, and I always pray and ask them what they need prayer for. And but we move things, we pick up things, deliver things, and it's been a large blessing in my life. Absolutely. I work with Miss Adrian, and that's a blessing to itself. Having a Christian woman who understands, and she's just a blessing. I come in sometimes and I'm having a rough day. You live with 40 other guys, there's going to be some confrontation, And but she comes and prays with me. I pray with her. That's God's providence in my life, putting a strong Christian woman that can help lead me. And being around a lot of the men that I'm around, that you can see them bear fruit. And that's another thing about being at Ground 40. Like, a lot of times we cast seed, and God tends the soil. He does. And a lot of times you don't get to see the tree grow, but God's blessed me and let me watch a tree grow right in front of me and begin to bear fruit, good fruit. And so it's just, it's been a blessing in my life. God saved me, and Ground 40 was the instrument that He used to save me from myself. So I thank you. I thank you for your time.